It's Scott on Security. I'm Scott Beck, co-star of the Amazon Prime documentary Cybercrime, a two-time best-selling author and CEO of BeckTech, a cybersecurity and information support firm based in Canada. Listen, thanks a lot for joining me today. And I got to give a little bit of a confession. Yesterday, the day kind of got away from me, so I ended up recording my video in my truck. And I was talking about the big news that's been breaking here in Canada anyways, about a fairly large construction company based in Toronto that got hit by ransomware, and it's now starting to make the ways around the news world, online, and in traditional media. And I mentioned yesterday that, hey, there's a new Digital Privacy Act law in Canada that came into effect last year, part of PIPEDA, where if you have a breach, or you get ransomware, that you have to legally report it to the Privacy Commissioner, and they're going to take a look at the situation and see what steps you've taken to try to mitigate that from happening, to try to stop that from happening to begin with. And there can be fines and penalties and all that fun stuff. And you might think, oh, and by the way, it's not just in Canada. Europe has even stricter laws about the data and information that you keep on your clients. In the States, they've got HIPAA around, HIPAA. Oh, that's always a hard one to think. It's not HIPAA, it's HIPAA. And it's talking about the medical records in the medical world and patient information. So there's a bunch of different laws. The government is basically trying to legislate people into taking this stuff seriously with some very serious repercussions. But Jonathan was really, well, he asked a question yesterday. He goes, Scott, well, like, how do they know? You know, why would someone go ahead and self-identify to the government that this has happened? And it's a great question and a legitimate question. I hear this all the time when I'm out giving cybersecurity talks. And well, there's two main ways that I can think of. There's probably more, but two that I can think of. You've probably heard the term, or maybe you haven't, dark web. Think of it like the eBay or the Amazon for cyber criminals. It's where they can take their ill-gotten gains and go online and sell the information. So as law enforcement and white hats in the cyber world, it's kind of like cowboys. You've got the black hats, which are the bad guys, and you got the white hats, which are the good guys. So as white hats and researchers and law enforcement dive deeper into the dark web, because it's not an easy place to get to or to find things in. It's as I tell people, it's almost like trying to infiltrate organized crime, because really that's what it is. All right, most of these cyber gangs are now organized crime gangs, and you say, well, Scott, how is that possible? I mean, look, there's that 19-year-old that just got arrested in Montreal that was part of a SIM scam group that had made over $50 million. This is big business. And this is where the bad guys go to sell their stuff and to make money on it. They're monetizing it. So, as the good guys and law enforcement and researchers continue to get into the dark web and find sites and see data, they can start tracing this back to where it actually was breached from. I mean, we have a dark web service that we're scanning for our clients, and it will usually tell us what website was breached. So if you know what website and where it came from, because listen, the bad guys try to validate the worth of the data. So they will try to say, hey, we got it from here, or we got it from there, so that they can show that it's current, or they can show it's of a higher value. So instead of getting fractions of a penny for a piece of information, they could be getting a nickel. Whatever the case is, they're trying to raise their rates and show how valuable their data is. And that's what's happening on the dark web. So it's possible that law enforcement or white hat cybersecurity guys could find the information and trace it back. One way, number one. But in this particular case with this construction company in Toronto, a very interesting take on it. The cyber gang called Maze actually put up a website publicly shaming this company, saying, hey, we got in, we stole the data, and they've chosen not to pay us. Because the bad guys know that these laws are out there too. All right? So, wow. Not only did they get your stuff, but some of them are now starting to publicly call you out and shame you. So they're going to get you twice. So, if you pay them, there's still a good chance that they're going to take that stolen information and put it on the dark web for sale because they want to generate more money. That's what happened to Uber when they got breached. The bad guy said, "Hey, look, pay us $100,000 and we'll just keep this between us. Hey, we wouldn't rat out on our friend, would we?" So the CEO and the CFO of Uber decided they would pay the $100,000, and guess what happened? Yep, The bad guys ended up taking the information they breached and put it on the dark web anyway so they could make more money. And what happened? I think that the CEO ended up getting relieved of his duties. Oh, sorry, I think he left for personal reasons. But basically, if you read between the lines, I would say that the board lost some confidence. And that's what we're starting to see more. Look, cybercrime is the only crime I'm aware of that the victim doesn't get sympathy. Think on that for a minute. If your personal information is being held by a company and they get breached, who's the victim? I'm the victim because my information got breached. The people that had my information, well, technically they're a victim too because they had the incident happen to them. But most people don't see it that way. They say, hey, were they complicit in the hack? Were they careless or irresponsible with how they were taking care of that data that just got breached by the bad guys? What was in place to try to stop that from happening or to mitigate the risks? All right, like I've talked about it. If someone's got enough time, energy, and money, they're coming in. If NASA can spend $50 million in cybersecurity and still get breached, it can happen. But we as business people need to be taking some steps to mitigate the chances of that happening, to be able to survive and overcome that. And the governments are trying to assist, I guess is the term, by bringing these privacy laws and legislating that this stuff has to be happening. Cyber insurance companies, cyber insurance is becoming a big booming business. Why shouldn't it? Because this stuff's happening. But they're going to be enforcing certain levels of protections or they're not going to cover the loss. So everything's moving towards being better stewards of your client's information, of trying to protect yourself more. And Jonathan, I hope I was able to answer that question about, hey, how would the government find out? Bad guys selling on the dark web and finding out about it through law enforcement or cyber researchers going in there and finding where the information was breached from. Or the bad guys just out and out going on the internet saying, hey, I just got in there, I stole the data, and they won't pay me. So they're terrible people. And you shouldn't trust them, and they'll try to publicly shame you into making payments and taking care of it. So that's how it can happen. And I can only imagine what's going to happen for this construction company in Toronto now that this has happened. I mean, they've already they're incurring bad publicity, getting, basically punched in the nose from a cyber perspective. They're going to be investigated by the privacy commissioner. There could be fines and penalties that go on with that. They've could end up losing some major contracts. They had a lot of contracts with the government. The people that are now going to be looking into this, and other companies are probably going to be going, hey, what did they do to try to safeguard their clients' information? So it's just bad. It's bad all the way around. So let's do something about it to make sure that we're trying to protect ourselves. If you need free reports or you need some more information, feel free to send me a private message. You can visit my company's website. We got lots of free materials up there. It's BeckTech, BeckTek.ca. There's tons of tips and tricks. Matter of fact, on yesterday's video, I talked about the 10 way hackers can get around firewalls and antivirus to get in. Maybe I'll put the link to that again down here. So look down here in the comments, and I'll put a link to that report again. So if you want some more information, it's free. Go ahead, no obligation, and go ahead and get that report and help educate yourself on this. It's real. It's not going away. It's a money generating for the bad guys, and it's lots of money, very little risk to them. It's only going to continue to grow, unfortunately. And as we saw with that kid from Montreal, 19, and the lure of $50 million, you can make as much or more money doing this with very little risk, or you could be out trying to sell drugs or hustle or crime. And cyber just becomes such an easy thing, and we need to toughen up our stance on it and protect ourselves better. All right, that's it for today. Thanks a lot for joining me on Scott on Security, and stay safe out there.